Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zero F's Era. Today, we're going to talk about taking the unexpected path. What happens when, as a woman, your role models are men, and of course, glass ceilings. And preparing for this week, I was struck by the comparison to my own experience growing up, where boys were encouraged to take charge and establish a career, and girls, simply put, were not. A 30-year PR veteran, Lysbeth Fox is the CEO and founder of Fox Communications, which counts some of the most prestigious names in luxury travel among its clients. Lysbeth is going to join the conversation today, where we're going to talk about building a business, creating opportunities where none existed, navigating expectations, and why it's okay to veer from the path that others have chosen for you in order to chart your own. So, Lysbeth, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Misty. Your guests have been incredible, so I'm honored to sit in that lineup. Thank you.
Well, we're absolutely delighted to have you today. And this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm eager to discuss with you. As you may know, we start every Zero F's conversation with the truth that we don't say aloud. So I will ask you, what is your truth?
So I think it's what you said earlier, which is that I have followed a different path than was originally mapped out for me in the beginning. I came from a very male dominated, traditional, I'm going to say English, but I know that you had some similarities as well, family where I was expected to get married and have babies and look after the family, not run a business.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We were talking about this before the interview. We are of a similar generation. However, I grew up in South Texas. You grew up in England, and yet, despite those vast differences in upbringing, our experiences are very similar with that. And so, how did you decide you wanted a seat at the table rather than being the person to clear it? You've mentioned that to me before, and I thought it was such a great metaphor. Do you remember when you first realized that the future imagined for you wasn't necessarily the one you wanted for yourself?
Because I've never been asked that question before. I need to go back and reimagine where I've come from. And I always think of, we had a round table of which my very traditional dictator father, who I adore, I don't mean he was a dictator, but he was how you imagine head of the household, would be more polite than dictator. And I have three brothers. And my mum would be in the kitchen. We had an open kitchen and we had this round table, and my father would sit ironically at the head of a round table, which I'm not too sure how that happened, but he would. So to put it in context, and my mother was in the kitchen cooking and I would serve. And we would all sit down and eat together, and he would ask us how our day or week was. And then I would clear, and the boys would sit at the table and discussing business or finance. And that I remember my father passing me a plate. So when you say, when was it that I didn't want to be there? I think it's that plate passing for me to put it in, take it away from him and put it in the dishwasher. I doubt we had that then or whatever, wash it up and clear the table. And I wanted to be there. I wanted to be at the table. So I think it stemmed from that. I think it was as early as a teen. My grandfather set up his own business and was very successful back in the 60s and 70s. So I suppose I saw that opportunity with them, and I wanted a piece of it.
No, I think that completely makes sense. I mean, did you want to sit down and jump into that conversation? You had a point of view to share on some of those topics as well, and it just wasn't expected that you would do that?
I think my parents, whilst it was a very traditional family, they brought us up equally, my brothers and I. So when I was quite young, I was quite a tomboy. I remember driving and passing my driving test or not passing it. And I was out driving and thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. And in my head, thinking, if my brothers can do this, I can do this. So I suppose that instills grit in me, seeing what they did. I mean, I never jumped off buildings. My middle brother's a stuntman, so that didn't attract me in any shape or form. I don't think I knew about the world enough, or finance, or business, to be able to sit and engage and have that conversation at the table. So I don't think it was that I wanted to be part of the conversation. I just wanted to be there,
Mhm.
not by the kitchen sink.
Yeah. No, I understand as someone who did the table clearing, and we had a dishwasher named Misty, so I understand that completely. You grew up in this family with strong male figures. Your father was a successful businessman. You mentioned your grandfather was an entrepreneur, which I think has probably shown up in you as well. And you have these three brothers. How did living in that sort of male dominant household shape your understanding of leadership, ambition, determination, and ultimately what's possible for a woman?
It's more to do with being a mom. And I think that being a mom has given me but maybe I always had it in me, but it shows me to lead by example. There was one night when I put my daughter to bed and she was in a bunk bed and I switched off the light and I thought to her, you have no glass ceiling because your mom runs her own business. There is nothing that you can't do or don't think that you can do. Whereas I definitely felt that growing up, that I wasn't allowed or enabled or that path wasn't open to me. I can't explain it, and you probably understand, but it's not like somebody said, no, you can't do that. It just wasn't expected. So I guess I didn't expect to be able to do that. But the way I've always been and the way I'm built is I look at something and think, I want to do something a bit differently, or if that doesn't add up to me, I don't necessarily have to just do something because it's the right thing to do. I have to do something because it makes sense. Not when I say not the right thing to do, I don't mean in life and in morals. I mean in business and in PR, for example. I look at something and ask, and I'm inquisitive to say, we're doing it like that, but is that the best way to do it?
So, I do think being a mother, and we both have teenage daughters, so it's
Mhm.
an incredible motivator to be successful and to set an example for them. I'm curious to get your perspective on this. When we were growing up, or at least when I was growing up, women of our generation didn't really have a lot of strong role models in terms of female leadership or female executives, women of authority who had agency. They were either sort of portrayed in movies as being like man eaters, and they like had to dominate everything, but they couldn't have this softer side. There wasn't someone who was well rounded. And I'm curious if that was your experience as well. And why do you think that is? One of the things that always comes to mind is the movie Baby Boom with Diane Keaton. I don't know if you remember seeing it way back when. You have to go check it out and see how it's aged. She was like this corporate board woman who suddenly was thrust into motherhood, and she didn't know how to balance it. And I don't think that's the reality of life as a female executive.
As you're talking about that, I'm literally thinking, who were our role models? And when you were talking about a movie, I was thinking of Dolly Parton, 9 to 5. I mean, that wasn't helpful. Um,
Great song, fun movie, not helpful for the cause.
Not helpful. Cinderella, I was a big, I suppose now it's Disney, but and the fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty, always waiting for Prince Charming. That's what resonated me. That's what I was supposed to do. That was my, trajectory in life. Prince Charming would come by and whisk me off in his white horse and
Yeah.
take me back into the kitchen. Um, and then growing up in England, especially in the 80s, when you talk about the female figure, we have Margaret Thatcher, whose nickname was the Iron Lady. So there's nobody who, I'm going to say, has it all. I know we'll uncover this because no one has it all. We're still business women, you and I. We still run the home. We still wash the dishes. We still cook. We're still a mom. Um, I can't think of anyone like in today when you can think of so many female leaders, so many females with a voice, so many people to look up to aspire to. I'm going to generalize, but we did not have that. I certainly didn't want to be Margaret Thatcher. I mean, she was hated beyond belief. I mean, you probably won't remember, but the worst riots we ever had was because of her. So whilst I'm in my 50s now and happy to be here, I don't want to create a discourse like she did either. So yeah, we either had Dolly Parton with voluptuous breasts going into the office, um, and being secretaries. That's what they were, weren't they? That's what female working women were. To Margaret Thatcher, who, let's face it, at that time was incredible. And I don't know her trajectory and how she got there, but she certainly wasn't revered or respected.
You're right. I mean, you either had women who were in supporting roles or you had women who were polarizing. I think in this country we had Hillary Clinton, who was meant to break the glass ceiling, but was incredibly polarizing as
Mm.
well. So, fortunately, our daughters today have more role models to choose from, in that sense. Now, through your career path, you gravitated towards PR, as did I. And I think that our industry opens up opportunity for women, probably more so than many others. So I'm curious, what led you to that PR world?
I didn't know what I wanted to do. I went to university, which, to be honest, had I have my life all over again. Again, it's something else that was expected in those. It was free for us, so and our parents didn't have that opportunity, so it was something that they pushed us all into. So I went to university, and I really didn't want to go. I wasn't interested. I wanted to work. If I'm honest, if I can be honest, which I know that's what this podcast is all about, I learned to be lazy, because you only had a certain amount of lessons a week. And I'm not a good student. I'm a much better worker. So when I came out of university, I was very lost. And an aunt I respected at a dinner table suggested I would be good at PR. And I didn't know enough about it to go into it. I have tried to do another job role. My father's company, I worked for him for a bit, and I hated it. And I always say two things. It was the best thing to do something else to realize how happy I was. I was very fortunate that I fell into a role that is perfect for me, because one way of saying it is I'm not very good at one thing in particular. Like, I wouldn't be a doctor or an accountant. I'm good at lots of little things. And that makes a great PR. You just go in or get up in the morning, you throw all your balls up in the air, and you spend the rest of the day catching
Juggling
them.
them.
And that just suits me. I like writing, but I couldn't be a journalist. I like pitching, but I couldn't be a salesman. All of those things and all of those little bits that you have to weave in make for a good PR. So that's how I ended up doing it 30 years later.
I think it's served you very, very well. It's interesting, though. We have something else in common, which is that I was not a great student either.
Oh,
I wanted to be done. I wanted to be out in the world. I wanted to be doing something already. So learning to do something didn't interest me. I wanted to actually be doing the thing. And I sort of fell into PR as well. It kind of blended a bit of my background with what I was really passionate about and fell into it. And once I did, it really just sort of fit like a glove. But I think one of the things I love most is the fact that no 2 days are ever the same in our PR world, which has also served me well. I don't do well with repetition, so it helps keep that at
yeah.
bay.
Yeah, I
So,
can identify with that.
what led you to start your own agency? Did you start your own agency out of the gate, or did you have a career in PR that you built up and then decided, no, I want to do this on my own?
So I say that I'm not a natural entrepreneur by trade, and that I fell into it. However, my second job, one of my best friends today, would beg to differ, because apparently by my second job, I was always saying how I would do it if I ran my own company. Obviously, I don't remember that. But so she said to me that it was always meant to be and I was always going to do it. So I had a good 15 years of agency life. I worked in house as well. I launched a private jet company, which was great to have the internal challenges that an in-house and to understand that, but also the agency background, so that when I started my own agency, I could see it from both sides, which I think was very helpful to me. It was recently divorced. My child was a year and a half, and I came back to England. I was living in Portugal, and I thought I could get a job in the city and I would never see my daughter. And she wouldn't have a parental figure because her father was living in Portugal still. And I didn't want to do that. So I started freelancing. And then I very quickly realized that it wasn't sustainable for me. So I don't know if it was circumstance or if it was the way I'm built, which is always looking to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And my mum got ill. I mean, not very ill, but and I realized I couldn't take any time off. And I went on a trip with my daughter, and I was meeting people in the day and then at night putting her to bed and doing all the reports. And I just thought, I can't do this. And there were other reasons along the way that made me decide, no, I want to take it to the next stage. And then I had my first hire and my first paycheck. And that was the scariest time of my life. That was scarier than anything. And signing an office for a year. I mean, I look back now and just think, oh, if only, if only.
Well, it seems to have all worked out very, very well. I would imagine it would be terrifying, but also how exhilarating. Like that's the first client you signed entirely on your own, which I think is amazing. But how hard was it to start your own business while also raising a toddler? That's a lot on one person's plate.
I mean, I think there's some sort of crazy in it. I look back, I'm not going to lie. I can't, some of the stories I have of, you know, me hiding a laptop or being on a call. And now people work from home. I think that they can identify a lot more. But honestly, how did we do it with having to be at work and looking after coming back for dentist appointments or doctor's appointments? I mean, I don't know. I sometimes don't know how. I call it the juggle, and it's real, and I say that to my team who go off on mat leave and have babies. And my favorite phrase, it is what it is. But the juggle is real, I'm not going to lie. And somehow, maybe men, I can only talk about myself as a woman, but we do it. We do it. And I think it goes back to you can't have everything. There were lots of times when I felt I failed. I failed as a mother. I failed as a business owner. I failed as a friend. Because you can't do everything and be brilliant at it all of the time. I still to this day playing Barbie with my daughter and just, trying not to be on my phone or going and watching Annie and just wanting to sit there and write a presentation rather than sitting in the movie theater. So I feel guilty about that still, probably, but I just got through it to the best I could. And I've done the best I can of being the best mum I can, the best business owner I can, the best leader, the best CEO that I can. And that's all I can do.
But you are not alone. I always say that working mother's guilt is the baggage I bring on every work trip because
I like that.
it means someone's getting shortchanged throughout the day. So I try more often than not to balance it all, but it's really difficult to do. And not just because I want, but I do think working moms are superheroes. I think
Yeah.
back to, I mean, you balance it all because you have to. There's not really an alternative there. And I feel you. When I was breastfeeding, I pumped milk in the bathroom of Bellagio in Las Vegas, on Amtrak trains, on airport, uh, bathrooms, like all sorts of really scuzzy, undesirable places to do that. But you do what has to be done.
It's
Um,
crazy, isn't it? It's
it, it
crazy.
it is, but it gets us to where we are today, which is being able to work in an industry that we really love and
Yeah.
appreciate, and to be an entrepreneur and a business owner. Going back to your family for a moment, are you the only one of your four siblings that is a business owner? Really?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, none of my 3 brothers do anything like I do, and I know that it took my dad a long time to get his head around it, and I had some, I'm gonna call it stigma in the family. People were like, "Oh, why would they hire you?" And just comments that I realized wouldn't have been said to one of the men sitting around the table. And whilst I try not to be feminist about it, or that I think, oh, they're treating me differently, or but the truth is they do, men do. Men just don't expect what we were doing. So I know now my dad and I were very close, and I mean, he's 94, and he will send me cutting, from the press, or he loves to talk to me about business. And that's brought us closer together. It's wonderful, actually. And I'm very, very lucky and grateful that I have that opportunity to have that relationship with him. I feel very privileged.
I love that he's so proud of you that he collects your clippings.
Yeah, if he could do digital, I would send him this, but I don't think he's gonna
Okay,
be
I
able
love a good physical clip out of a magazine or a newspaper. We don't get
to.
anymore, so it's nice when it happens. Looking back, what are the most valuable lessons you've learned about womanhood, about career, success, and were there any sort of societal expectations in those areas that you think you kind of had to unlearn so that you could move forward?
The first thing I wanna share is when people ask me what it's like running a business, and I can only identify with that, and talk about that, and I always say to people, it's a roller coaster. It's up and down, and when it's up, enjoy the highs, because any minute now, there's gonna be a low, so hold on tight because you're gonna go down. And the lows are where we learn. We don't learn when everything's going great. It's the pictures that you pass by. You think, why didn't I get that? What did we do wrong? Let's analyze this. Whereas the pictures you win, you're just on such a high that you're such a great PR that it's in the media that you pat yourself on the back. So I think the failure of some parts is not a bad thing, not all of the time, because it's it's too depressing and you need the highs, but the failures are the challenges are where you learn. So look at them head on as a positive, I would say. And I think that's another learning for me, is to always look at something. I suppose it goes back to, how can I do it differently? How can I do it better? I don't need to do something differently for different sake. I'm not looking to rewrite the rule book. I'm just looking to make sure that rule book sits comfortably with me and is the way I want to do it, because I think we're going to get the best for our clients or for my team. So that's something else, is you don't have to do what's been done before if it doesn't make sense to you in your gut. And with my team, I'm sure that you have this, but when people start to complain about something, it actually means that they care. And we had a really interesting incident the other day. They were complaining about something in the kitchen. And I was like, okay, let's put that on its head. Let's her to be kitchen monitor and to run the kitchen, you know? And
Be
it's the
careful what
best
you
thing.
ask for.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really is seeing where people are complaining rather than thinking, oh, they are complaining. We had somebody got water on their bag with their laptop. And I was like, it comes back to a bit of doing it differently. Okay, well, what can we learn from that experience? Oh, we don't have laptop covers. We don't have waterproof laptop cases. Maybe we need to be doing that. Rather than just being annoyed for annoyed's sake, really looking at something and thinking, how can we do it differently? What can we learn from that? What can people derive enjoyment out of if that complaint could be changed to actually having an interest in something?
Yeah, if the complaint becomes the solution versus just the problem, then you're onto something.
Right? I mean, it's just a mindset. So it is just thinking more of a positive mindset rather than a complaint.
Well, this is a perfect segue into the permission slip. We close out every conversation with the permission slip. So, what's something that no longer serves you that you've given yourself permission to let go of? you're maintaining the positivity, but with something that you could say goodbye to?
Think it's that uncomfortable journey that I wasn't so not imposter syndrome, but I wasn't supposed to be in the place that I am today. And I'm really grateful for changing the track, literally, in my journey and for being who I am today. I was thinking about, in the words of Sheryl Sandberg, about leaning into it. It's not about what other people think of me so much, but more about who I am today and how proud I am and I want to be of myself and the people around me and the team that I lead, and to do it with grace and gratitude.
Well, so that's also another great segue into my last question. Are you in your zero F's era at this point?
I am, and I think there's more to come.
Do you have any advice for anyone who is also on their zero F's journey who maybe isn't there just yet?
I think that my advice is to have your eyes open, because it will hit you in the face and it's going to come. So embrace it. Just embrace it. And I think the people who perhaps haven't yet haven't stepped into it and they're trying to be somebody that they're not and don't. I think that's what I've learned is stop trying to be somebody I'm not or somebody that is expected of somebody else and step into my own shoes, whether they're flats or heels, which I know we have in common, and embrace it.
That excellent, excellent advice, and something that I think we really have earned and now embrace as women in our 50s. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for a really interesting, wonderful, fun conversation. I appreciate it very, very much. And to everyone else, thank you so much for listening and being part of this conversation along with us. Please follow us on Instagram at ZeroFsEra, or you can email us at zerofsera@gmail.com. And remember to give yourself permission to be all out of F's for the things that don't matter so that you can make space for the things that do. Until next time, I'm Misty Bellis. We'll see you next week. Thank you.